that you were talking about.
Yeah, so we have a Corso Crufix come down on. Oh, we have this backwards.
That's all right. We'll fix that real quick.
Go ahead and fix this, Rena.
April Fools. A little late for the April Fools, but here we go.
So for this round 2, we have Isaac on 2 wins and Aaron on 3. So Aaron actually got the pair down. If he had played against somebody who is also XO, he would have been able to draw in the top 8, but it looks like he's going to have to play the next 2 rounds out. Kind of a disappointment probably for him, especially playing against one of his worst matchups.
Correct. Xenagos, that's a very tough card, as you were talking about before. Very, very efficient against a deck like Aaron Fisher's, since it's adds to the diversity of threats, and it's 2 threats on the board. It's a creature and a planeswalker.
Before Born of the Gods release, the blue-white control had a really hard time dealing with the Jund Monsters deck, or just the red-green deck too, because they had a ton of planeswalkers as well as efficient threats, and you can only have 4 D spheres in a deck. You can only get rid of 4 planeswalkers, and the red-green decks were playing 11 or 12. And so the reason Born of the Gods kind of helped blue-white control a little bit was that they get Fate Retribution, which destroys all planeswalkers and creatures, which gives them kind of a hedge against this matchup a little bit if he is running one, which I think I did see one in.
Because blue-white wants to get to the late game anyways, and when they get there, just really put the hammer down.
Right. Maybe play a Fate Retribution the next turn, play an Elspeth, and it's kind of hard for the
deck,
yeah, any deck to come back from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Aaron just took 4 damage there. Oh, maybe the Jace took some damage.
So we're seeing Aaron kind of contemplate his next turn, really planning out his next couple turns because these are kind of the crucial ones. When he gets up to like 8 mana plus, he'll be able to Sphinx's Rev and play his really high impact spells. It looks like he's going to hold open his mana for his Syncopate, but he's going to just let his Jace die, and then we're going to see combat coming in for 3 more. That was only an attack for 3.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to see a Quicken at the end of turn and a Verdict. So he's actually not going to take the 3, it looks like, and he's just going to... Sorry.
That's interesting. A Quicken into a Supreme Verdict?
Quicken and Supreme Verdict. Not the first time I've seen that, but definitely one of the most devastating plays against the aggressive deck.
It almost seems unfair.
A little unfair. I didn't think Quicken was a very good card, but it seems like every time I see it, it just kind of... at the very least, it's a cantrip, right? At the very least, it's going to draw you a card.
Right. So it's never going to like just sit there in your hand. And costing 1 blue, you know, it's just cheap and efficient. I remember that in the original set that it was printed in, and you were never disappointed to see it. You know, you play 1 or 2 of them, and if you needed a cantrip, you just cantrip. Kind of like a worse, like Scrying Visions.
And I don't always see Quicken Supreme Verdict, but I do a lot of times see like Quicken Divination or something like that, where you're seeing 3 cards and then also being able to do it at the end of their turn, so you can still hold up a counterspell or something.
Yeah, it's nice to have that versatility when you're playing blue, because counters sometimes they land at the wrong time.
And see, this is kind of the problem I was referring to, is even though he's gotten rid of 2 planeswalkers, it might come to the point now where Isaac is going to land another planeswalker, and Aaron will not easily be able to deal with it. Probably not an issue in this game because he's already at 6 lands, but we'll see. So you see a Divination come down. Some of that hard card advantage that the blue-white control deck really needs to kind of stay in this game. And we're just another one.
Aaron Fisher is a Divination Station.
Divination Station.
He loves tapping his lands. There you go. Isaac is so he's scry here.
Scrying and really thinking about this top card. But he keeps it on top, and we're going to see a Stormbreath Dragon come sideways for 4.
Just comes into play tapped, I guess.
Usually Stormbreath Dragon comes into play tapped. It's usually how that works. A lot of I actually have played him as a blocker though, and he is a miserable blocker.
Yeah.
A 5/5 for 4 is not necessarily what you want to keep on blocking duty.
So how is Aaron gonna deal with this Stormbreath Dragon in this deck?
A
Is he
lot.
gonna Supreme it? Or?
I mean, a lot of the times it's a supreme verdict. I mean, there aren't a lot of ways. It generally ends in a supreme verdict, though.
Hmm. Oh, he just passes. So does he have the mana to monstrous that Stormbreath Dragon? Is a question.
If he has an untapped land here, which looks like he didn't, he would be able to. So Aaron's going to take another 4.
Probably coming up with a Sphinx Revelation here pretty soon.
We're going to see Apollo Kranos come down. So Isaac, I feel like, is kind of overcommitting, I would say.
If a verdict comes.
If a verdict, yeah, if he finds a verdict here in these top 4 or top 5 cards, and Isaac's probably in a real world of hurt, only having a couple cards left in his hand.
Yeah, and you see the blue-white deck here likes to drop down to a certain level and come back up with that Revelation.
Right. So we do. It looks like the 4 mana right here is just going to be a verdict. Yeah, we see the verdict come down. So this is kind of where the blue-white control deck takes control. It's just going to keep drawing cards and until it dwindles the opponent's resources so much that he could just land anything and it'll be devastating. Where usually his win conditions are honestly just Mutavault.
Yep, here comes the Stormbreath Dragon, maybe, unless it hits it. Yep, there's a Syncopate.
So you get a Syncopate to the Stormbreath Dragon. Probably the best answer to Stormbreath Dragon is just a counterspell. It's a 1-for-1, and you don't have to take the 4 damage. That's what's so good about the Stormbreath Dragon is it has haste and it's got to get in for 4.
Yeah, usually, yeah, it gets that 4 damage then. And chase.
So an really good Jace activation there. And kind of the choice for Isaac there is, do I give him a Sphinx's Rev or I mean, I can't give him a Sphinx's Rev and another card, so you just put the other cards in the other pile, and they usually end up taking the Sphinx's Rev.
Yeah, kind of simple one there, kind of a scripted one that you see a lot.
Very rarely can you not take this, or can you not take the Sphinx's Rev, or do you not take the Sphinx's Rev? So we see a Domri Raid come down. Aaron's got to draw a card in response and cast.
Oh, wow. Off the tip.
Just right off the top. Right off the top, gets to dissolve, counters it, and scries 1, keeping it on top. So you know that's a good card. And then we see a Caratid come down from Isaac.
Did he even look at that before?
I don't think he did. I think he noticed so quickly that he just threw it on the table. Knowing. It's like he expected it almost.
You know, Fisher, like, yeah, he's kind of like, you know, if you ever watch Star Wars, the new ones.
Yeah.
You know, you see the Jedi Council and the guy with the really big cone head. Like, that's Aaron Fisher. He's really smart.
He's just calculated.
You don't know what he's doing, but he's always doing something really well.
He knew exactly what percentage chance it was, but even though the percentage was low, he knew it would be on top.
Yeah, wow, look at this, a 3rd Stormbreath Dragon.
So 3rd Stormbreath Dragon coming down from Isaac.
We were talking about charms earlier. I like Azorius Charm. That's like one of my favorite charms.
Azorius Charm is also a really good one.
I just love that mode where you can pay 2 mana and deal with almost any attacker coming at you.
Yeah. The problem with Stormbreath Dragon, though, is that he has protection from white. So I remember when that card got printed, I just wanted to throw down my deck almost.
Right.
It's like I can deal with the Thundermaw Hellkite, but you gave this guy pro white.
Ooh, and that Stormbreath actually gets in, hits a Jace. This is probably big Sphinx.
So we're going to see a Revelation for what looks like 8, which will bring him up to 21 if that's right. We're going to have a spotter go check for us. So the thing, what you'll probably see from Aaron Fisher for the next couple turns is just more Planeswalkers, Supreme Verdicts, and then eventually he's either going to win with Elixir of Immortality and mill his opponent out, or more likely just land an Elspeth. So it looks like with that last Supreme Verdict, Isaac's going to scoop him up, and they're going to go to Game 2. Game 2, Jund Monsters gets actually a lot of good sideboard cards. You're probably going to see some amount of targeted discard, more Rakdos Returns, Thoughtseize, those kind of things. As well as if he's not playing a full playset main board, more Stormbreath Dragons, because that card, as you can tell, usually got like at least 4 damage in, unless it got countered. From the blue-white control list, I'm not sure how many cards he has against this matchup. A lot of times you see blue-white controls decks hedging against more aggressive decks, where the Jund Monsters is not as an aggressive deck as Aaron's hedging for. So we might not see a lot of sideboard cards from Aaron Fisher, but definitely some amount of discard and more threat density for Isaac.
Yeah, the Jun has a really nice sideboard here, huh?
Yeah, Jun seems like it would have a nice sideboard. Usually main board they're good against they're good against the aggressive decks because they have big creatures and good like really efficient removal like Dreadbore. And then post board they kind of get more cards against control because they have the targeted discard, and they usually side in more threats so that they're not
Just
when
sitting
they're
there with removal.
yeah when they're top decking they're not getting Sylvan Caryatid, Elvish Mystic, they're getting Stormbreath Dragon and Polycranoses and Reaper of the Wilds and stuff like that.
Do most Jun decks run Reapers in the sideboard, if not in main?
I haven't seen it before. I personally though I just like Reaper better than Gore-Clan Rampager. I think Gore-Clan Rampager is a nice trick, and if people are inexperienced, you can kind of just take control of a game and just get somebody really bad. But I kind of like the more consistent Reaper of the Wilds, being able to scry, especially with Corsair Crucifix and Domri Raid, you get to get even more value from scrying and kind of manipulating the top of your deck. That's just a personal preference.
Yeah, his triggered ability where you scry after any creature dies is very relevant.
Yeah. So and again, especially against control decks, I really don't like losing against control decks, as I'm sure most people don't. Just when they're sitting there revelating and you're doing nothing, it kind of feels bad. And Gore-Clan Rampager is not.
Turtling.
Yeah, Gore-Clan Rampager is just not really good in the matchup where they have Azorius Charm. If they're not tapped out, you realistically can't Blood Rush your guy.
I can definitely go along with that mentality that you're saying, because because a Rampager, it's like a combat trick, and it gets less and less effective as your opponent can see it coming. So when you play, the more advanced opponents or people who have been playing these sets for a while, they're going to see it coming, and it's just not going to help you.
If you're telegraphing 2 mana on my turn, I'm obviously not, or on your own turn, I'm not going to block your guy. And I'm gonna, if I have mana open, like if I have a removal spell, you can't do it either. So you kind of just like wasting a turn there with your attack. So we're seeing they're probably going to get to the game fairly soon here and take another look at his main board.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions in this sideboard versus the ones that we were seeing earlier.
Yeah.
Because for one, they were always aggro decks, and here we've got control-ish decks. Jun Monsters kind of being mid-range control, and then of course UW blue-white control, a straight-up control where they want the game to go very long. So it's going to be a lot more decisions in their sideboarding here.
I'm not entirely familiar with the blue-white control, but can you think of any cards that they would side in this matchup? I think something like Elspeth would be good. Sun's Champion is a really good threat against them, but I couldn't think of anything else besides just more Planeswalker kind of spells to be good against them.
Yeah,
maybe another Faded Retribution if he has it in his board.
Yeah, I wouldn't be 100% sure. Maybe some kind of oddball card like some other counterspell. The thing about Aaron Fisher's deck that was really good and prevalent in the first game is we saw the Syncopates.
Yeah.
And the Syncopates were very key to have that whole counterspell suite of the Syncopates and the Dissolves.
Because Jun Monsters kind of gets their ramp from creatures too, so if you Supreme Verdict and then hold up Syncopate or something of the sort, they're really choked on mana at that point when they're still trying to cast a 5-drop but only actually have 5 mana.
Right.
So we'll probably see the same amount of counterspells coming from him. Also, the new Oblivion Ring, Banishing Light, I think it's called.
Yeah,
I see some amount of those. But the cool thing about Isaac's sideboard was two of my favorite cards in that Jun can play in this format is Abrupt Decay and Golgari Charm, which Golgari Charm we've talked about before. But Abrupt Decay is not only good in the aggressive matchups because you could just kill most of their creature threats, but it's also good in actually the control matchup. I actually keep in all my Abrupt Decays when I'm playing the main board because they're good against Detention Sphere.
I was just going to say Detention Sphere, and here's Fisher showing us his hand. You can hit a Detention Sphere out of nowhere, and if you hit it at the right time, it can be very devastating to the blue-white player. Like, especially if they pass it. Like, if they pass the turn not realizing that you're going to Abrupt Decay their Detention Sphere, you get a threat back.
And even if you don't have Detention, or even if you don't have Abrupt Decay, you can have Golgari Charm, which destroys an enchantment, Detention Sphere, and then also he has -1/-1. So the decks that are playing the X ones, the 1-drops that are like 2/1s, it's really good against those decks too.
Yeah, very versatile.
I definitely like the
Yeah.
those cards in the Jun's sideboard.
Isaac has a lot of acceleration. Well, it looks like he might have missed a land here, though.
Looks like he missed a land drop and that he just swung at the Mystic too. So we'll have Aaron at 19. The funny thing is that, or not super funny, but when I actually play this matchup, I choose to side out my Mystics if I were him.
Yeah, so you're not so susceptible to the Wrath of God or the Supreme Verdict.
The Supreme Verdicts, yeah. So if realistically, if Aaron sees his next 2 lands in Supreme Verdicts when he has 2 Elvish Mystics and a Scavenging Ooze on board, this game will, in short order, be over for Isaac. So we're going to see probably a Bremas. So that's definitely a sideboard card. So I guess in the Aaron Fisher sideboard, he kind of went with the creature sideboard plan because Isaac will be setting out most of his creature removal, not expecting it, and then Aaron will be able to just kind of take control of the game with his Bremas. And I'm guessing Archangel of Thune is something I've seen before too.
That card's really tough if you can't remove it.
Which kind of combos nicely with Bremas. When you're putting in 1/1s and then you're putting counters on all your 1/1s. You can really quickly kind of take control of the game.
Yeah, and you see on Isaac's side, he's got that Ancient Ooze all the way at the end, and that card can actually build up. It's good when it comes out down right after a Supreme Verdict, so it becomes a significant card. It's kind of a mixed bag.
I feel like his hand was kind of forced there just because he's not playing any threats, and you can't just let the control deck keep playing lands and just spells that interact with you because you'll just end up losing that battle.
Yeah, one thing that's always interesting just in general Magic theories, you have to decide if you are the aggro player or you are the control player.
Yeah.
And here it's obvious that the control is the control deck, but with your Jund, you kind of have to, you don't know if you want to go fast, you don't know if you want to go slow.
Yeah.
And it, puts you in a compromising position sometimes.
So it looks like there we had a block of the Scavenging Ooze on the 1/1 token, and he has Zorius trying to put back on top of his library. So that's kind of funny too, is when the blue-white control deck gets so that far ahead, they can actually use their Zorius Charm as a tempo play, more of a tempo play than just a removal spell.
Right, to punish him for to draw that again.
Yeah, but he doesn't get to draw a land, and he gets to draw a spell that doesn't really do anything.
Right, because as you were saying, his hand was forced.
So he's actually allowing his Mutavault to trade with the Scavenging Ooze there. And Bremas is just kind of quickly taking control of this game. He has 2 tokens on board, and he's taken, looks like he's taken 6.
Yeah, Bremas, that was a surprise to me. I wonder if it was a surprise to Isaac as well.
Yeah, probably. Isaac probably doesn't have too many answers to us anymore. He might have some amount of abrupt decays that came in, or even no, I'm not exactly sure what he could have in there. So I guess Isaac's out to this though is just some amount of
maybe abrupt decay was one that he could still have in there.
I mean, at this point, I think Isaac just has to play creatures and hope for the best.
There's definitely another sideboard card coming on Isaac's side.
So he has a 3/3 here, and it's going to make it so that he can actually block the tokens, but still not be able to block Bremas, which is a problem.
It's like Aaron stepped away from the table. He saw that 3/3 Hydra. He was scared. I think he's running away. maybe he's gonna, go and try to read a tip book to see how you can deal with a 3/3 Hydra at this situation, at this juncture.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if the Hydra is what did it.
Oh, you don't think it? Oh, okay. Maybe, yeah.
When we have a 3/4 on board and 2 1/1s, I think we're okay. And it looks like he's sitting on both players are sitting on a full grip of cards, but Aaron Fisher's are probably more castable than Isaac's at this point.
I would imagine so, yeah. I always hate it when I have a haste creature and I can't attack with it.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like the card's just not good.
Yeah, it's like the Stormbreath Dragon I said before, where you kind of just play it as a 4/4 blocker for 5 when it has haste and pro white. You just want to be kind of getting the red zone, but sometimes he has to sit back there. Not the best feeling. I've also done that before where I play Stormbreath on blockers and he just Mizium orders it on his turn, and I just literally played a 4/4.
Oh, what was that?
Didn't get
banishing.
Yeah.
Couldn't even get anything with that Hydra.
Yeah, so the Hydra was able to block some damage, but not be able to actually trade with or destroy anything. Isaac's hand full of cards, not the ones he needs.
Yeah, at this point of the game, he would really like to be playing 2 spells a turn if he had all those cards in his hand.
Right. Hopefully at this point he'd try to be landing like Rakdos returns for 4 or 5, trying to get some cards out of Aaron's hand as well as doing damage. But I mean, in order to do that, he would need threats on the board.
Yeah, and unfortunately, even if he played something really awesome here, looks like Aaron has Dissolve or Syncopate mana.
So looks like Isaac plays another Mistcutter Hydra on 3, and Aaron's going to go to his turn. And honestly, the 3/3 isn't doing much here.
Yeah,
Aaron's
Aaron
really just trying to get in the red zone here.
just there
And
it
there's
is.
the game. Then that's 2 games. Again, ending in just over 20 minutes. Blue Eye Control taking it. Seemed like a pretty sketchy keep from Isaac, which turned out to,
Yeah, it was
give Aaron the game fairly
aggressive,
fast.
very aggressive for holding 2 Elvish Mystics and a land. Maybe he thought he was just going to get some more good stuff going there.
So I guess that's kind of the problem you see with these ramp decks too, is that a lot of times against the control decks, either they'll be missing land drops and have the dorks, or basically what I'm trying to get at is that the mana dorks really aren't that good of creatures in the matchup. Like even though you're accelerating to a 5/5, they don't really care if they're still just removing it for 2 mana.
Because it's not like a tempo fight. It's more like
Right.
who has the biggest forces.
Right, and so you really just want threats. I think you really just want threat density rather than ramping to your cards. So a lot of times in that matchup, I might keep in Caryatid, maybe, but most of the time I'm just siding out all my ramp spells and just playing as many threats as I can, whether it be planeswalkers or creatures, or Rakdos returns or Thoughtseize. And playing the Thoughtseize is kind of like a way to make sure that your next spell resolves.
Right, and
So-
and that advantage of knowing what's in your opponent's hand, your
Right.
control against your control opponent, is so monumental. It's
Yeah.
just you can't even
I
explain
mean,
it.
some of the best plays are like against what I've seen against that deck, and I did see the Rakdos return from Isaac, so I'm not mistaken there. But like Thoughtseize, and they just counterspell it, and then I Rakdos returned them for like 5 and got their whole hand. And it's just a way Thoughtseize is like really good in the matchup because it makes sure that your next spell is most likely going to resolve.
Whether they counter it or not.
And if your next spell resolves, it probably means that you're gonna win the game. Like you're taking their best spell, and then you're also resolving a threat. And so they're kind of relying on the top of their deck. Kind of a Sire of Insanity, but just with 2 cards that are probably better apart from Sire of
True.
Sanity. But yeah, it looks like that game. It's just kind of a sketchy keep from Isaac.
It was also pretty fun to watch Aaron Fisher put in that Breamaz. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
aren't going to see that coming.
If we had the side cams, right, with the facial expressions, be like, oh god.
Yeah, I know. I was doing that. You
I
couldn't
was
see
doing,
my face. I was like,
you
whoa!
couldn't see it, but yeah, Aaron Wallace was over here like freaking out over
I was doing
the
the
Breamaz.
Tyson
If we saw Archangel of Thune, we might have seen like a victory lap around the store or something.
right. Have to bring the webcam around while
Yeah.
we're doing that.
Totally. Have somebody chasing you around with a laptop.
Yeah.
But yeah, so quick couple of games there. Kind of an interesting sideboard from Aaron Fisher's side, siding in the creatures against the creatures because the Jund deck is siding out their removal spells. I definitely I totally thought Jund was favored in that matchup, but as with any matchup, nothing's unwinnable.
Right.
Even in any format, if I say something's unwinnable, I usually mean it's around
It's tough.
70-30, but even still, that's 30% to win.
Yeah, and those 2 decks, how they go against each other, Jund and Blue-White Control, they're
Yeah.
very thought-provoking decks, and so a lot of it's
Definitely.
going to be different from player to player because there's a lot of judgment calls. Like, do I keep this hand? Like we were talking about the sideboarding, there's a lot of different sideboard choices.
With those colors especially, you just get a lot of options. Jund especially gets just like a lot of sideboard cards and just like a lot of options as to what creatures they can run and stuff too. So it's all comes down. It's not just making calls within the game, but also making calls within your deck building choices. And I think that Isaac's deck was just not designed to beat blue-white control, as
Yeah,
well as some other decks.
did we see? We didn't see a duress or a thought seize. I
We
don't
didn't see
think.
any to discard. Really, the only thing that we saw that last game was the dorks and then scavenging ooze. I mean, that's really all we saw. Oh, and then the Mistcutter's Hydra sideboard.
Right.
So I'm guessing he just kind of wanted to. His game plan, game 2 and 3 was to be ramping up to a large Mistcutter Hydra, which
Right.
is always. Which always usually gets him damage, but as you saw in that one, he just was choked on mana and then was actually Greenwise could have blocked either of those Mistcutters.
Right. And then the difference between a Hydra that has 3 counters on it, that opposed to 4 or 5, is very significant.
Yeah.
Because if you're dealing 4 damage to their 20 life, they'll have 5 turns. If you do 5 to them, they'll have 4 turns, and not to mention just how it'll interact with the other creatures on the board.
Right.
Bremas on there being 3/4, you got to have at least 4 power to take him out.
Yeah. So a good match from Aaron Fisher and Isaac. It looks like Aaron Fisher's probably going to draw to go in the next round. So we're bringing you another match here in probably about 20, 30 minutes or so. And we'll be back with round 5 before we get to our top 8. So
That's good. Stay tuned.